Anyway, cool story. But it's been a long 24 hours. Let's put
Well,
it
what
that way.
about the Form Fest? Don't skip over the good part.
For Fest,
Don't
it
pretend
was
like
it was it was bigger than I thought. It was pretty cool. It's like any festival. There's a Ferris wheel. There's all these like
there
things
was
you
a
could do.
seriously, a
Yes,
Ferris wheel?
a Ferris wheel.
Were there children there?
Yeah, there were a lot of kids there. I mean, everybody was fit. Let's just start there. Like
Yeah.
when I said I was the least fit person there, I was not kidding. I like it was very evident that I did not belong.
The kids were fit.
Yeah, kids were fit. The dogs were fit. Everybody was fit.
Oh.
And everybody was real into health. And, it's the first like festival I've been to where there was no alcohol.
Oh, boo.
They had,
Oh my God, that sounds like a special slice of hell. Listen, I love working out, but
right. Well, at least I didn't see there was Michelob Ultra Zero.
Oh, of course.
And then they had like VIP sections that we could have gone to. We were invited, but you know me, I like to stay with the common man. So they might have had beer in there.
Yeah.
But no, it was cool. I would say the coolest part was the night before at AB St. Louis Brewery. I saw, Simon Thorpe. Spent a lot of time with Brendan, and spent some time with Kyle Norrington, and a bunch of distributors there. One of the coolest things, they took me, it was kind of a secret tour of what they call the Vault, which is the old schoolhouse. And that's where like Adolphus and them had their board meetings and stuff. And so it's a separate little building, but they've completely fitted it out. It reminds me of like a Mission Impossible set. Like there's screens on three sides. It's all touch screen. And it's for retailers. For chains, they come in, they call it a collaboration center, right? And I was really impressed with it. It was very high tech. Like they could put a planogram of the whole store showing the flow and gross profit, and you could just move things around, and it would tell you how much it would affect sales, and shelf space and out of stocks. That for as a sales nerd, everybody knows that. Everybody knows that about me. I was, the days of emailing planograms, and that was the extent of your category management prowess, I think, are done. Brendan really Simon said that he spearheaded it because Pepsi had something similar. So they spearheaded it when Brendan came over in like 2022, and they added to it. So that was cool. And, I met Andy Frizzell and his brother, and my son hung out with them a lot. I hung out with his dad, who's like 75. He's really cool. He and I stood in the rain together and watched Dana White on stage.
I thought you were going to say, watch wholesalers ride the Ferris wheel, but go on. I'm sorry.
No. So we got to meet those guys, hang out with them. And so that was I think the thing that Wyatt really liked was meeting Andy Frizzell. He's done 75 hard a couple of times. And also, did you know that there's a casino in St. Louis that you can gamble? I guess
I did not know that.
I knew and forgot. So we went to the Horseshoe Casino, and we each got $200, and he turned his into $1,000, and I lost my $200. So
nice. So sorry, I interrupted. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
In fact, I lost more than $200 because I actually ran out of money and started taking his chips, and then he still ended up. He cleared $1,000, and we're just playing blackjack.
Nice. So he has much better luck than you. Well, yes. And instincts as well. But I interrupted you when you started talking about Dana White. I apologize. So anything interesting there,
or? I'll just say, so this was at the brewery. It rained the whole weekend, but it was pouring down rain, and people are just standing in the rain watching him on stage with the Frizzella brothers doing like a live podcast on stage. And they took questions from the audience, and it was good. But I was standing to the side with the Frizella's father and some other people. I was surprised at how many people did not care that it was raining, and we're just standing out there. There were a lot of just distributors there, and everybody is real upbeat. The Busch Light Apple thing, Michelob Ultra, so distributors seem more upbeat than I've seen them in a while. I guess they'll announce they're going to have new skimmers flavors and whatever. My discussions with Brendan and those guys was off the record, so I can't really talk about what we talked about. But I'll just say they seem more upbeat than they have in a few years.
Yeah. Yep,
so
yeah.
That's all I got to say about it.
Awesome. Well, I'd like to welcome to BeerNet Radio, Austin Sawyer, co-founder and president of CMC, which is a leading bev alc platform for shared sales, marketing, expansion efforts, and more. And today we also have Jake Bullock, co-founder and CEO of Cann, which is one of the best-known brands in the cannabis beverage space, with an estimated revenue last year of $40 million per CNBC. Jake can correct me if that's wrong, but welcome, gentlemen. Super excited to have you all here.
Excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, and Cann is a client of CMC, right? So this was very natural. Yeah, cool. How did that happen? How did you guys link up? Yeah.
Not weird at all. So
yeah, very, very comfortable.
Cann was actually the first THC seltzer that I'd ever heard of. That was very early on.
I think that's pretty common. We hear it a lot of times at retails. There's obviously a ton of new brands out there today. You go to Total Wine, there's hundreds of SKUs out there now. And a lot of people have that comfort with oh, I've seen that. Or I was at a buddy's party and they had that. And they're there's a lot of comfort. It's oh, I know that's THC, but I also don't feel, weird drinking it because I've seen a lot of other people do it.
Yeah. We've been doing this for 6 years. We were the first to do a microdose, what we now call a microdose THC drink. There were much stronger ones on the market, but you're talking 100 milligrams. This is how you're going to spend 8 hours on a Saturday on your couch kind of situation, where we said, well, what if we made it 2? What if we made it so light it sort of felt like beer?
Yeah, so that was very deliberate. That was from the get-go your point of differentiation, right?
Yep, exactly. I mean, I would say now it comes really down to the taste and the brand experience. I mean, we have amazing liquid people love, and that's what brings them back. They love the packaging that gets them to try it for the first time. But 6 years ago, it was really that micro dose that was pretty subversive, and it still kind of is. I mean, if you go to some of these markets, we can talk about it. You go to Minnesota, they'll tell you 10 milligram sells the best. It's it's flying off the shelves. We have a 10 milligram product. It's a great product. It tastes great, but it's a different consumer, and we're going after that just average person, right? And it's similar to how light beer kind of came in, and it really was about moderation. It was a little bit about health. That's what we think is going to come to this category. It may take a little bit of time, but it's coming.
Yeah, Jake, so where do you guys right now, where do you sell the best? And I guess I should say, first of all, that you guys have both hemp and marijuana derived THC beverages, correct?
Yes, we still sell marijuana derived drinks in the dispensaries in California, although that's the last state. At one point, we were up to 7 states in dispensaries, but we can talk a little bit about why those didn't work. But the main reason is that consumers going in dispensaries are trying to get high. They don't want a 2 milligram drink.
Right. So the hemp derived side of this business is really what's driving your business right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's probably 90% today of our business.
Okay. And then in terms of the region and the channels, can you share where this product is really moving?
Yeah, we mostly sell today. I mean, we're in I think something like 30 states, and we primarily sell in alcohol retailers. It tends to be kind of your independent liquor store. So mom and pops all the way up to Total Wine, which is our biggest customer. I think we're in almost 20 states with them. And so that's really the profile. I mean, the grocery retailers, the mass retailers aren't in yet, although I think some of them are coming. And we're just starting to see convenience stores really take this category seriously. So that's going to be the next fun new wave.
Nice. Yeah. And then, we had Austin at our summit earlier this year, and he dropped a huge hint about a retailer that was going to turn on, maybe a convenience related retailer that was going to turn on a bunch of hemp derived products. And I don't know, Austin, if you want to speak to, I don't know if you can speak to that
Everyone else is talking. Everyone else knows Circle K is selling THC drinks.
Right. Yeah.
We're under I can't, you'd be the first person I introduce them to when they're ready to make a public statement, but it's out there, right? They're expanding. I think there's 5 or 6 more business units that are currently evaluating products. Jake and his brands are going in there. It's and basically there was a global beverage director test that was Georgia, and then it got approved. So before Arizona, right at the last second pulled away, they were writing sets. They were going through the process with the wholesalers. Over in the, Carolinas will be the next BU, I think UC Go. But I believe I saw on call our team this morning, the Florida business unit. I think it's the Wisconsin business unit. So there's all their business units where these beverages can be sold are going in. Jake made an interesting comment. It's not yet on grocery is exactly right. When you look at convenience, I think convenience was the first channel that a lot of brands go after, right? Obviously, Total Wine is a massive customer. We've all seen what like Top 10's doing in Minnesota. But when you go, it's no different when you're on a distributor route. You get a new brand launch from Anheuser-Busch, from Molson Coors, or anything. The independent convenience store is traditionally the easiest place to go get it because you find something that's out of stock, or you move something around, you put something on end facing, and you shove it in there. The problem with that is you may have a random 4-pack of THC next to IPAs. So what we're seeing a lot more people doing is starting to add doors of THC beverages. But even when chain convenience is going in, they're writing their sets to be all singles right now, which is great for trial. We're seeing Circle K. I mean, they're adding a strong amount of variety in these new stores, which they want. They want well-known brands like Cann for seltzers. They want soda brands that have D9 in there. They want a variety of things, variety of brands. But when we see, and there's some grocery that's in right now that's selling, and it's high volume retailers. You've got Fairway in Iowa. You've got Rouse's down the coast. You've got SEG down in Florida, which is an Aldi banner. You've got some good ones going on with more to come. That's where the volume and tonnage is. Circle K is a lot of volume because it's, a lot of stores and a lot of accessibility, but you're still buying by the single. I think when you see more and more chain come on in grocery, that's where the volume comes from, right? But the sampling opportunity is great. At the end of the day, everyone in this category wants them all to be selling because then there's trial and it's everywhere and it's more commonplace. And I think the accessibility is easier to get. The commonality of it being readily available makes it seem more safe and okay to some people that still aren't safe and okay with it. But yeah, it's going everywhere and it's going fast.
Dan Patrick's not safe and okay with it.
He's not.
Well, let me just ask that and then I'll stop bogarting. What happens if a major market like Texas comes offline? How huge of a hit to the industry is that? Or is it recoverable? Or
Jake, you want to take your stance on that first?
I mean, yeah, look, I can share from our perspective. This isn't new to us, right? This happened to our business a year ago with Governor Newsom in California. It's interesting that Texas is choosing to go the way of California, but it appears that they are. And so we had to reckon with that last year, and that was a big part of our business. That was challenging. It actually drove a lot of our state expansion because we had a big hole in the plan we needed to make up because California was going to represent a pretty sizable chunk of this year's sales. In some ways, the silver lining of what happened in Texas was that's not going to happen again to us because we did diversify across a number of states. I think I said it's up to 30 now. So Texas is a big market. It's probably not in the top 5, but it would be in the top 10 for us. And so we'll do a little bit of work there. But one of the things that's exciting about this category is we see what happens in Texas, and then we say, okay, well, we need to really greenlight Louisiana, Kentucky, and Virginia, which are all states we're not in a real meaningful way, and we should be in. We'll do amazing in. So we just sort of one door shuts in your face and a few windows open, and we've got pretty big markets in the Southeast now. I mean, North Carolina was bigger than Texas for us, so it's not crazy to think Virginia, which is a market which capped the THC at 2 milligrams, would be a really good market for a brand that sort of hangs its hat on 2 milligrams. So that's our strategy, and we'll be able to manage it. Hopefully Texas comes around. Hopefully California comes around. We don't think that these are sort of permanent changes. These are sort of temporary, almost backlashes, I think, to how successful these products are and how popular they are.
Yeah, I think you also see, and Jake, tell me if you disagree, but both governors now have pushed this through with a personal agenda. I think Newsom went to his daughter's school, and there was a C-store buy it that sold. And again, there's two common threads. There's a personal agenda, and there's also the whole category of HD9, right? There's 100 milligram gummies and vapes, and then there's COA regulated drinks that are done the right way with low milligrams and dosage, and they're throwing it all out. So I think when you put those two things, we're diversified. We're total beverage, right? So we're alcohol, non-alcohol, THC. We're in everything. We go as the beer distributors go, as I say. But you see states like Tennessee where we're based out of. I mean, they regulated it, right? And it's going to have there's some give and take. And I think one thing I said at the summit in January, the one piece everyone needs to get ready for is e-commerce is going to be that bargaining chip. E-com shipping to your house is going to go away if this thing gets regulated through 3-tier. Just like most states, you can't ship beer to your door outside of like a local Uber Eats or DoorDash that IDs there. It's going to be the chip, and Tennessee did that. They also age gated it. They put regulations. They put milligram caps. They made it 21 and up in stores. And I think, not speaking for the brand owners, but I think everyone wants it's taxed by the gallon in Tennessee. Taxation and regulation is what everyone wants. And I think people are a lot more focused on the positives right now for states that are hearing the lobbyists separating these things out and regulating the right way than they are now, albeit two very, very large states. Everyone loves to sell hemp. It was a personal agenda and they threw the whole thing out. So I don't think while they're big volume states and big opportunity states, I don't think anyone's ringing any bells that there's trouble for this category.
Has in Texas, the governor hasn't signed it, has he?
Not yet.
He's getting a lot of backlash, like from veterans groups and constituencies that he cares about. There's a petition that has I think over 150,000 signatures, and he's, every radio station I listen to or podcast in Austin, they're telling people to write the specific email address that, so I don't know if that's going to affect him. I know that he and Dan Patrick are tight, but I don't know, man. It doesn't seem, maybe out in West Texas, there's a lot of people against it. I just think politically it's the wrong move, but nobody asked old Harry.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, it's been the crazy thing, like Austin pointed out, is we actually agree with the lieutenant governor on almost all this. Like 95% we agree. There should not be 300 milligram gummies from synthetic, derivative cannabinoids that are being marketed to kids, with Disney princesses on them. Like that we're against. Everyone's against. There's no place for those products anywhere in the market. But he's sort of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, which is too bad because Texans are consuming these products, millions of them every day, and they love them. I think the backlash will get worse once the average person realizes this is happening, which I don't think they do right now.
I also saw
Listen, if you go out after Willie Nelson, then you're on the fighting side of me.
I also saw somewhere that they were trying to the back end of this thing would be that. And Jake, you probably know better than I do. You guys are very close to the regulatory side, but they were going to allow to Harry's point, the veterans, the people that deal with PTSD and use this for, stress relief in their everyday life, that there was going to be a path to being able to get essentially medical. But I saw something, and it was on LinkedIn. I don't believe everything I see, but there was going to be like a prescription period, whether it's opioids or some kind of period where you must try that for 60 days. And if that doesn't help, then you go to this. And I think, again, there's all kind of misinformation out there, but that seems just like a crazy path to me.
I was in Missouri over the weekend, and I went to a dispensary to see what it was like. And it's not a consumer-friendly space. Let's put it that way. It's like you're going to visit a relative in prison. I mean, that's what if you get your ID scanned, you get your picture taken, there's locks on doors everywhere. And it was the most unpleasant experience I've been to. So yeah, drinks don't sell well in dispensaries. It's the sad.
You feel like you're doing something you shouldn't when I'm in there. It's cash only. Like I still feel like I'm buying weed when I'm in there, but not legally. But you go to a Total Wine or a Circle K or one of these stores where you're buying your 12-pack of beer, your energy drink, your water, and you pick up this also destigmatizes a lot of that, I believe.
Right. Totally.
Yeah. Well, Jake, I want to talk a little bit about, you were at the Beverage Forum, I believe it was last month, and you were talking about hemp-derived THC beverages interaction with Bev-Alc, right? And you said that you guys study this a lot with your own brand and that Cann consumers over-index as alcohol drinkers by 4x. So that's super interesting. What else can you tell us? How are people co-consuming these products? Or is it more like, your product is basically eating into Bev-Alc share?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it's definitely true. We've observed this with our customers. So they're drinkers. They drink alcohol. They actually drink quite a bit of it. I think it's part of the reason why they find us, that they're worried about how much they're drinking. And we saw this for the very first time at the beginning of the pandemic. when folks were all trapped in their homes and, didn't know what was going on in the world, and, largely drank alcohol every night because they could, and they were sort of not sure what was going on. And that alcohol consumption kind of piled up in such a way that they were like, hold on, we got to get this under control. We saw a really big uptake then. I think that's when we first introduced to this customer of like, oh, your core customer is a drinker. What's interesting is when they find Cann, they come back to average. They still drink alcohol, right? Like we're not out there, proselytizing sober people. It's really not the case. I think maybe 17% of our customers say that they don't drink any alcohol, but the vast majority still drink alcohol. They just drink it, like you say, in different ways. Maybe it's zebra striping, right? Maybe it's helping them moderate. Everyone wants to moderate their alcohol consumption with other alcohol form factors, right? With other products. And in the past, the options they've had have been sort of like, okay, great, you can grab a Red Bull, right? Or you can grab a seltzer water, but it doesn't really have the same sort of impact. What's amazing about our products is that buzz actually kind of gets you along the way. It bridges that gap when you're not drinking alcohol, or the alcohol buzz subsides and you get a THC one. Maybe it provides a baseline. We hear from a lot of customers that it's the first drink they have before going out, and it's the last drink they have at the end of the night. It can, and it works for them in that way. I would say that we don't really think about these products eating into the share of alcohol, right? I think that what's happening in alcohol is happening. It's happening whether Cann exists, whether THC exists, whether THC drinks exist. And we've seen that. We've seen it in the numbers for longer than we've been around even. Obviously, it feels like it may be picking up a bit. Maybe some of that's the economy. I don't know. Maybe it's, everyone's wearing these fitness trackers. They're getting data about their behavior to their phone. Maybe it's TikTok, right? You got video content showing you different alternatives you maybe didn't know existed. And I think THC drinks are really there picking up some of those pieces. If we weren't here, folks would be going to adaptogenic drinks. They might be going to some functional drinks. I was on stage at Beverage Forum with the founder of a mocktail company out of Australia. Australia's #1 mocktail company. We know Australia drinks a lot of alcohol. They tax it like crazy to try to reduce that consumption. And there's really strong mocktails in that country, stronger than they would be here. So, I think that maybe you would see people turning to products like that, or even the 0% zero products that we're seeing, maybe Athletic Brewing, right? Heineken, I had the Peroni one the other day. It's actually pretty darn good. So I think that we just kind of are a better version of all that because we deliver a buzz. People will feel something from our products, and that really helps them, from a sociability standpoint, from, unwinding after a long day. And if people care about calories, we're also a lot lower calorie. So I think that helps as well.
Smoking flower is just such an unpleasant experience. Like, I don't know many people who actually enjoy that process. Just THC beverages are such a nicer way. I've observed that with my own sons who, prefer it that way. And don't forget the black market. I mean, that's that I had this kind of argument with a distributor who's kind of against it. And I said, all you're going to do is just drive them back to the black. People are still going to smoke or get their cannabis. So, I've always have kind of been wary of claims that cannabis cuts into alcohol consumption any more now than it ever has.
Yep, it's been around, for a long time, well before these drinks. And I would say what's good about the drinks is we don't have a counterfeit alcohol problem in this country. We're not going to have a counterfeit THC drink problem either, largely because of alcohol distributors, right? These wholesalers are stepping up. They're providing compliance. They're selecting brands that are legitimate, that have high quality. And that's going to make a big difference. And it will crowd out the illicit products.
It's 3-tier chokehold. I mean, that's how you collect. You got to have a chokehold if you want to collect taxes and if you want to regulate with a license.
Jordan, you've been quiet.
Yeah, in states where they've passed legislation and everything feels a little more secure, how are you thinking about marketing in those states and investment and opportunities as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, we pay a lot of attention to, we call them the dark green states. They're essentially the states that allow us to sell, but have recently passed laws or updated their regulations. And we like that because, it's a pretty good indication that they know what they've approved and what's happening. They understand it and they're aware of it and they support it. And so, those are markets where we want to do marketing. For us, it's really about that hand-to-hand combat that's happening at the store level. It's basic stuff. It's stuff that we've been doing in beverage for decades, right? But increasing the visibility of the brand and the products in store, whether that's through various point of sale assets, winning end caps, winning case displays, things like that. And then, we also do sampling programs. The thing that's amazing about Cann is the taste. I mean, we do all these really cool things that no one else does. Like we import blood orange juice from Sicily. It's the best place in the world to get blood orange juice. I don't know last week if you saw, but Mount Etna kind of had a big burp. That volcanic ash is what makes the citrus so incredible coming out of Sicily. So we import Sicilian juice for that reason. No one's doing that, right? We don't use any artificial flavors. We don't put any fake sugar or anything like that in the product. So people actually try the product. It has a huge impact on their willingness to want to buy it. And once they try us, they stick with us. We know that. So it's a really good investment to invest in behind sampling. And we're just starting to see, I think, the sort of live event venue world open up to this as well. If you have a bar or a concert hall, a festival, and it skews to younger audiences, you're losing money on your bar. And they've been seeing that in the numbers for some time. Old rockers are still doing pretty good. They buy enough beer, I think, to make that bar work. But they need the bar to work. Those margin dollars are key to making the event successful. So we're seeing those folks finally open up to pouring our products. I think this summer will be like the real start of that. And that's another way we can invest in a market and do all sorts of creative things, whether it's win free tickets to this weekend festival, by coming into the store, or even after, once we've been able to sample that product through the weekend festival with tens of thousands of folks coming in and picking up a pack after you tried it in an environment which is really an amazing environment to try a product like ours, because it enhances your experience of music and food and potentially your friends, depending on who you're with.
I also think you hear a lot of people say right now, it's funny to hear, and I love drinking canned stuff. It is very, very good. But like we get on a lot of calls, a lot of brands that are new to the space right now. And it's kind of like, what made you got into, like, what's your story? How'd you get in? It's like, well, it's pretty easy to make, right? So I think you hear like, well, anyone like breweries, that's the next wave, is you're going to see a lot of top 50 alcohol companies come out with something very, very soon, I'm sure. But what people don't understand, and we do this with Cann, we do this with other brands, it's not taking a new IPA and getting it into the cold craft set. It's not getting a new tap. Like, it's showing legality and explaining to these people how it's legal and what kind of permits they need to have and what's this impact going to do. How do I make a set? Do I put this in the non-out? Like, it is a lot that goes into building this category. So if everyone thinks like it's easy, I can just find this co-packing place to do this, like, there's going to be, why we're going to see another wave of brands coming, because everyone that can make them easily, consumers, this is not cheap product, right? Distributors, all three tiers of the system are making real money on this. For the first time in a long time, we're not arguing over 50 cents on the margin line with distributors. It's good money, but to go out there and have a product that consumers are going to pay, call it $16.99 to $19.99 for a 4-pack, you better have good packaging and good liquid and no half fills, and you better make sure your stuff's right, because there's a couple brands that are selling very cheap right now. We don't support that as a company. We think this is a premium category that needs to stay premium, but with that, the premium price point is going to demand premium product and premium ingredients, and people are going to, until I think Nick from Jake's team told me about their blood orange from here and lemons from here. I was like, I thought he was like, no way, no one's is that quality driven. And when I tried, I was like, okay, I get it. Like, this is like, you can taste how fresh it is, but consumers are going to hear that story. You talk about what are they doing for marketing. And I was like, that should be everywhere, right? Shout that from the rooftops. And they're telling that at every tasting and demo and event they do when they can talk to consumers. And at some point, they're going to say, oh, well, this brand uses something that Robert Kennedy is going to outlaw, while these guys are buying real lemons that they hand squeeze. And that story is going to resonate with people, because if you look at, we got asked a few weeks ago by a distributor, like, well, we sold CBD 7 years ago. Why didn't that work? Or 10 year, whatever it was. I said, well, there's a lot changed. There's some small brands called like Poppy and Olipop that have now replaced maybe 1 out of every 3 sodas for the, working adult that's out there and used to drink sodas. The better for you movement, real. And to Jake's point earlier, whatever's happening to alcohol is happening, but better for you is real. People want to know what's in what they're eating and drinking and how it's going to function, add to their, plus column or their minus column, what they're trying to track or the watch is doing or whatever. People care about that stuff. And I think it's really going to be, I think there's price compression at some point is going to happen, as it does for most categories. But the premiumization is here to stay of this category. And that's where consumers are going to find their brand loyalty. Because right now, they're picking a lot of odd SKUs, flavors. They see social ads, whatever, they order it to their door. But at some point, the brands that really survive this next curve of new entrants are going to be the ones that are quality driven, talk to consumers the right way, and really create that social occurrence. These guys do an amazing job at it, and I think they're a leader in it. So
it also pays to create it as a premium category, because you don't know how much tax you're going to have to eventually absorb, because at the state level, then maybe eventually at the federal level. So you want to start high so that people are used to it and there's no sticker shock. That's my 2 cents.
No one's going to get mad if this stuff gets cheaper one day, but if you try to take a 50% increase, people may figure out another way. They may go back to the black market.
Right, exactly.
What other industries have you followed, Jake, or what has been kind of a blueprint in building something that nobody really had any experience doing?
Yeah, it's interesting because we struggled early on to think about like what are actually the dynamics that we see here. And we launched in the dispensaries, right? So it was even harder because it was this sort of mismatch in terms of the retail environment, right? We were basically selling a product that no one really wanted that was walking into a dispensary. And so like how do I think about these analogs, right? And I think the biggest challenge in the early days we found out was we were facing not only a distribution channel issue, but we are also facing an educational challenge, right? People didn't really even know that microdose THC infused drinks existed or how they would even use them. If you see our packs on the shelf in Total Wine, we have these big billboard text copy on the sides that say things like "take me to a party" or "bring me out to play," and largely that was us trying to solve this education challenge, which is like, what do I do with, like, what am I doing with 2 milligrams, right? It is meant to be social. That's sort of how we designed it. And so, in a lot of ways, I think that this category feels like early kombucha or some of these beverages where, why am I going to buy this strange liquid with something floating in it? Like, it seems weird. And kombucha sat on specialty grocery shelves for 10 years before people figured out, oh, it's actually good for them. There's something in it that they want. And that thing that's floating around is the thing they want. And so it's fine. And then there were real brands, and, there's multiple multi-billion dollar brands that came from that category, right? And I think there's other examples where the initial challenge is really an education challenge, and it's also an apprehension challenge, right? Like, people don't drink Cann today largely because they're afraid of THC. We have customers that will talk about how, oh, I would really like to get so and so to try this, but they're too afraid, or they want to try it for the first time by themselves at home because they're afraid they'll like embarrass themselves in front of their friends, right? So I think we need to get over those barriers, and we're seeing progress. We're making pretty good progress. Distribution will help us. Getting out of the dispensary and into the liquor store was a really big first move. I think going from the liquor stores now into grocery to convenience and hopefully mass not too far from there will really help. I mean, most people go and buy their alcohol today through a grocery retailer or a convenience store, and so we really need to be on those shelves because that's where they're making that decision, right? What am I doing at the end of the day? Am I having a glass of wine or am I having a can? And what we found from Total Wine and the data they shared with us is this actually expands the average ticket. It's a basket builder. So folks they're grabbing the wine and they're also grabbing Cann. And that's also really interesting to us because it's starting to feel like something that you need to have, whether it's for you, whether it's for someone that's coming over to your house that doesn't drink alcohol, wants to drink less. It used to be easy. It's like beer for the guys and wine for the gals. That was like the old paradigm. And now I think, RTD has broken that down. You have this sort of like broadly appealing canned beverages. And we're kind of jumping on the tail of that and basically saying, well, what do you have for the person that's zebra striping? What do you have for the person that's not drinking tonight? Maybe they'll drink tomorrow. And I think more and more of those folks are popping up. And that's really why we're seeing sort of the traction that we are today.
I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk back about Bevalk for a second. Austin, I'm curious because we're talking a lot about retail. We're about to hit the all important summer selling season. What are you seeing in the market for Bevalk this summer? What are retailers featuring? Where is pricing going? Any trends you can talk about? Because obviously, you interact with retailers a lot.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think no different than Jake's analogy there, that when you have a party over, you need to have something for everyone. That's, you go out to a packaged liquor store, you go to a grocery, you're seeing the same thing, right? I think we're seeing less of is like we used to go into every packaged liquor store or grocery and you would see your regional craft summer seasonal stacked up. Not seeing that a lot anymore. You're not seeing your Leinenkugel summer shandy was always you go in the Midwest, it's always stacked up. Not seeing it as much, right? And it's not as much volume that category, but you're seeing things they're almost like things that would be lucky to see like a warm shelf placement are now getting an end cap because they know if the days of bringing something into a big retailer and just putting it in a spot that no one's going to shop, and they know it's a waste of time. So there's a side stack of it. There's a tasting going on. There's something there. Obviously you're big. You see the tea still having its moment. Surfside's doing a great job. There's a lot of markets. I was just down in Florida, and I was spent some time on the East Coast and the Midwest. Teas, hard teas are out there pretty big. It still blows my mind how much High Noon you still see on the floor. I know I read last week they're losing a little share of their volume. I think everyone's losing a little bit of share. But starting to see the new the new High Noon, even the innovation, the Lucky One lemonade. Yeah. Everyone loves a dog and a good story, and that product's pretty good. But I mean, at home in Tennessee is a good example. For the last 18 months, THC beverages haven't been allowed on display, and you used to see them stacked up, so they had to be behind the counter. But now that regulation passed, you don't go into a store and not see 5K stacks as kind of, I was just in Charlotte, North Carolina last week. Every Total Wine, or if you see a Fresh Market, like the end caps where you see craft beer 5K stacks are now THC beverages. But you also see the same, this is the crazy part when I go shopping, you will see the same size display of an Olipop or a Poppy display as you will now, or Essentia water at $3.50 a bottle, as you will, that used to be, red, white, and blue Bud Light Ultra displays, and I think it really depends, like, different parts of towns are going to be, you go out to the suburbs, you still see beer stacked up, right? It's Bud Miller Coors, it's Modelo, it's High Noon, it's your flagship items that people are going to buy in bulk to take to the beach or take to the party. But when you go to, especially when you get into the city, and a lot of these, Austin, Texas was a good example, Chicago, Nashville, spent some time in those markets recently. It looks a lot different. And the biggest thing I take away is, what's out there, but what's not out there is those staples that I feel like have had their bulk selling seasons. The cold boxes aren't getting any bigger, so those brand shares are going to continue to take a hit. And I think, to Jake's point earlier, alcohol is not losing to THC. It's not losing because no one's drinking alcohol anymore. It's losing because it's death by a million cuts right now. And I shouldn't say death. I will take that back. It is a million cuts that are impacting the overall health of this category. People now have a lot of options. I read last week that consumers today, your average working professional, is spending 35% more a day on the beverages they intake. Even when alcohol was everywhere, people were going to happy hour because you got a $6 cold brew and you've got $2-3 sodas and your bottle of water is $4. Then you go to happy hour and you drink a $12 THC drink at the bar. It's diversified, and I think the same thing is going on the retail floor. And look, I'd say 60% of distributors in the country, real distributors, if not higher, are now selling THC. And I think in January when I saw you guys last, that probably number was probably 35, 40. It's rapidly increasing. And they understand, like, they've got to have something, like, if you talk to a distributor, their MO has been beer's kind of wavering. We build these energy drink brands up and they leave us. But this category is better margin than anything they've seen. So with that, if you can stack a RTD that makes you $6 a case, or a THC beverage that you're making, call it ballpark for the industry, $25 a case, I can tell you which one you're going to stack up, and the velocity is great. Because then I think there's this, again, destigmatizing the whole thing. When it's on a display in a prominent retailer, people feel safe and they're throwing that into their cart. So we're seeing, better for you, non-alc still big out there. I think Athletics still is still doing its thing as number one spot in the non-alc. But to Jake's point earlier, talking about Peroni, I had a Heineken Zero last weekend. It tastes just like Heineken. Like, they're doing an amazing job. So these non-alcs are stacked up there. And I think for the first time that retailers really having to get creative, because all these retail buyers and what they do the floor planograms and the shelf schematics, they're bonused on what their overall, their cold space does and their store does for volume. They have to think about how to not only put this product in, but how to maximize the sales and how to cross merchandise it. I mean, it's getting very interesting. I'll be going out a lot in the next few weeks as we look to the fourth build. I don't think it's going to get any better because, again, think about Jake's statement rings very true. You know, you go to a liquor store and you're loading up your cases of beer, you're loading up your wine, you're loading up your Tito's, you're loading up your high noon. Like you're throwing a little, like you're probably spending the same amount you were, but the easy buy before was 5 cases of White Claw, 5 cases of Miller Lite, roll your buggy out. Now it's the same dollar amount, but spread them out over 5 or 6 categories. And I think the floors are pretty, reflective of that.
And so it does make sense for the beer distributor tier to have a piece of that pie, because I don't imagine we're going to go backwards. I don't, Texas notwithstanding, but yeah, I think it's increasingly an important category and a real category.
And it was all over our distributors survey, to your point of 60% of distributors carrying it now. I mean, we had so many write-ins about hemp-derived THC, whether they apparently wanted it or not. I mean, they were just like, well, this is here now and we need to have it. A little bit like craft back in the day, like, well, I'm going to pick this up because I don't want my competitor to have it.
And there's so many, if you talk about craft back in the day, like, and Cann has every brand has a little bit of this, right? If you look at craft, and I was on the other side as a distributor, we were a buyer and an acquirer. We try to take everyone's brands, but craft breweries go out there, and Sierra Nevada signs with this craft only house because they're the only ones taking craft beer. The THC brands that have been out there for a while, I'm not picking on Cann, everyone has the same, and they've got phenomenal wholesalers and wholesalers that one day, and it's not good or bad wholesalers, it's wholesalers that can service where this category is going. Chain retailers will not buy from the all other distributor at some point. They're going to expect the same frequency of service and merchandising. They're going to, expect no out of stocks. They're still running their INBI reports. They're going to expect that standard. So just as you saw many of those craft houses go away because they, if you take at one point, if you sold Sierra and 5 locals and 20 other cool brands, someone's going to take Sierra away. Now your house falls, right? So the same thing's happening. And a lot of these smaller distributors were the first ones, and kudos to them, jumping on them. Now, just like any other brand transaction, they're going to get paid on the exit. But unfortunately, it's the world we live in. And, the big wholesalers are going to win and going to be the strongest if they position themselves that way.
All right. Well, I have one last question. Just Austin, you guys have announced some pretty big deals in the last few months. I mean, you have a partnership now with Tom Fox, who's well known for sales coaching in the industry. And then you just announced last week a spirits division. So anything to share about those 2 big new divisions?
I mean, look, Tom is industry renowned, right? He's one of the best people. He's one of my favorite people to grab a beer with. And he's just awesome. He and Sean Fox's son, Saul, and I did, Tom is, I don't know how many years now, everyone that's in the industry, like, oh yeah, I did Tom Fox training, right? So their model was go out there, and Tom does these amazing things, a world-class sales trainer. Was son Sean was like, look, we can't run my dad around ragged forever. So let's do an e-learning, let's put a lot of this e-learning. Well, at the same time, we've now got 100 people on our team internally at CMC. We have a lot of amazing folks with a lot of industry knowledge. And then, the THC beverage category was really one of the things that sparked the early conversation. And I said, if we can figure out a way to take all the learnings we have, the legality, how to sell, how to merchandise, how to coach a sales team on how to, the same thing that brands like Cann do when they roll out a wholesaler, distributors need this, large organizations need this. Plus we have a very large reach, and we try to do our best to be involved as many industry conversations and events and all that. So while their 2-person team has an amazing product and platform, putting that in with CMC's reach and connectivity and our knowledge that we can add to that, we look forward to working with a lot more distributors, a lot more organizations. We've got 15 people on our national account side now, so being able to level up. Tom, he's speaking MBWA on a panel about key account strategy. We're collaborating on his best practices now with what we're seeing, because it's ever changing. It's national accounts is trickier than ever. So we're putting that together. Now our team can add value to the e-learning side. But we can also expand the reach of that. And then the spirit side, we dabbled. We put our toe in the water 2 or 3 times to try to throw a beer and a shot brand into a beer book. doesn't work. You know, we hired a lot of beer people and we said, this spirits is a different game. But we had a lot of big brands come to us and saying, we tried some smaller versions of your organization. We've tried it ourselves. There's a common theme. Everyone in alcohol is slowing things down a little bit. You're seeing, unfortunately, some layoffs. We saw RNDC last week pull out. There's a lot of change, and our business does well in change. Our business is one that, you know, we've had our own reps for 20 years. Well, now we're going to evaluate and try it this way because I know these companies are doing it. We saw the same opportunity in spirits. And we were lucky enough to get David Brooks, who's been with the Sheehan organization, Blueprint, and all those group in the Northeast for about 10 years. He's going to come on and lead that. We piloted we're separating spirits out. So now in Nashville, we pilot a spirit specialist program. You know, we're launching that in 5 more markets. We've got a national account spirit person coming on. But, you know, our next 24 months roadmap, you know, we're doubled down in THC. We've got brand directors. We've got full-time people that work on compliance, regulatory, and permits, because that will change 5 times a day if you don't watch it. Education people internally now that just educate our team and retailers and staff trainings and all that. But, you know, the same thing, we're going to open, I mean, wine is an opportunity, you know, non-out, traditional non-out. We've been very lucky to be a part of Poppy and Lucky Energy, some awesome brands in the true non-out space. There's a whole other white space, but that has to be sold and handled a different way. And also, you know, when I go on these world tours, I just meet with wholesalers and retailers. I'm telling you, distributors are going to be selling burner phones and cigarettes in the next 18 months. Like, you know, nicotine pouches. There's one of those that are now going through the distributor networks. It's a brand called Sesh that I saw out there. It's in Crescent, Arizona. You know, they're looking at candy bars. They're adding value to their stops per truck. So as our model says, we go as the beer distributors go. I don't know. I mean, we're going to continue to seize the opportunity, but we've been able to put together, we did the hard stuff, the HR, the accounting, the head of people training. So now we've got a strong foundation to grow. But I mean, our team, I'd say, you know, 30% of our business is now THC Delta 9. So it's a large chunk, and all of our team, you know, we don't drug test. We are big, proponents in this segment and believe in it because, self included, I don't drink as much alcohol as I have done for a long time, and you know, subsidize that, a lot of that with some Delta 9 beverages. I think a lot of the world's doing it too. So the better for you movement's here, and we're trying to ride it to wherever it takes us.
That's great to learn the story of how your company's grown, Austin. Because I remember, you know, years ago when you were first getting started, it's gratifying to see the success. And well, you can't get a better guy than Tom Fox, right? I mean, just the best.
I don't, you know, my dream bar tab would be, I guess, probably Harry and Tom and a couple others that would get us in trouble. But you know, that maybe we'll reenact that Coronado next January.
Absolutely, I'm here for it. And Jake, also, you got a tiger by the tail over there. Cann, really, really high level. Your merchandising is beautiful. Your cans are beautiful. I really, yeah, like I said, it was the first one I ever knew, and it's still, when I go to Total Wine, I go about once a month just to check out the D9 section, which is surprisingly big, and you guys always pop. So thanks, you guys, for being on BeerNet Radio. I hope maybe some of your dreams came true today, and if not, we'll just have you back until they do come true.
Sounds like a plan.
Always happy to be here. Thank you.
See you next week. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.